I am a really big believer in shut up and test the cards. So that is exactly what we're going to do today. Hello folks, Phil Gallagher aka ThrabenU here for another Legacy video, and today Anubis has supported the stream by asking us to go and play some red Stompy. Now Anubis has been working on trying some alternative builds for quite some time, mostly around two different pet cards. Razorkin Needlehead, which is sort of like your red orcish bowmasters, as well as Screaming Nemesis. So this is a slightly different looking build than what you might see other people testing right now. The core is largely the same, but as we move towards a post-banning world where we might end up seeing more like Fair Days Delver style decks coming around in multiple different colors, wanting to reduce the number of 4-drops that's in your deck is a very real concern. And that kind of led to this build. Now, Bonecrusher Giant is being played in flex slots here as some value removal that can kill smaller creatures in the early game while being an annoying threat later on. And this deck has a little bit more direct damage to the face than usual. Like, we have Razorkin Needlehead, and notably this is whenever an opponent draws a card, including the one for their draw step. So that can go to face, Bonecrusher Giant can go to face, Bonecrusher Giant's trigger can go to face, Screaming Nemesis. Yeah, if it is dealt damage, it deals that much damage to any other target, which, you guessed it, can go to face. Pyrogoyf, face. So that's kind of what's going on here. This is an aggressive build that also can just send damage directly to the dome. Now, I don't think I changed the main deck at all, except I removed one Gemstone Caverns and played a Mountain instead. That's one of those cards that I just think is bad, despite other people having very good experiences with it. I did retune the sideboard, though. If memory serves, this was originally submitted with Chalice of the Void in the sideboard. I'm not exactly sure how good that card actually is right now. So I have moved my hate in a different direction. We're rocking Leyline of the Void over Fairy Macabre because there's an unhealthy amount of Oops All spells in leagues right now, and that's what the Mind Break Trap is for as well. Disruptor Flute is meant to be my Pithing Needle style card that might stop things like the One Ring, while also just being generically okay versus combo. And then we have some things that we might end up playing versus fairer graveyard decks, featuring things like Murktide Regent. We have Unlicensed Hearse and a Pyroblast or two to help out with that. Fury was not originally in the build at all. If you take a look at the 3-drop slots, this is not actually playing Broadside. This is a little lock piece heavier. So we have the Blood Moons, the Trinispheres, and the Magus of the Moons in the main deck. So we are looking to steal some games with an Oops, I Win button sometimes. The Furies definitely are worse if Trinisphere is around. But if I want to sub out Trinisphere versus Fair decks anyway, I can board in 2 Furies and 2 Fiery Confluences, and then have a relatively aggressive plan that is an easy in-out versus fair decks. So the spirit of this deck is still exactly as it was when it was submitted. So folks, if you need some cards for this post-ban metagame, please consider checking out my sponsor, TOAMagic.com. Tales of Adventure is an awesome store. I buy from them all of the time. Promo code ThrabenU will let you save 5% on your order, and you bet that I use my own code when I place my orders. I really have to build that veto deck that I've been talking about for like 2 months. With that being said, let's battle. This is a little bit of a weird one. Turn 1 Mountain, Chrome Mox, Imprint, Spirit Guide, play Bonecrusher Giant on 1. Turn 2, I have 3 mana. I can't follow up with Pyrogoyf immediately. If I slow roll this and I remove an initial creature, this hand's probably quite good. A lot of this depends on how many cards my opponent puts in their graveyard. I am not overly impressed by this, but I imagine that this hand improves consistently enough between 2 draw steps to be overall keepable. Verdant Catacombs and pass. If I play City of Traders on turn 1, I can just Pyrogoyf pretty quickly, and potentially just cast a Spirit Guide as a 2-2. The Spirit Guide under And we will Bonecrusher Giant. Bonecrusher Giant is much less impressive when played out as a standalone card, as opposed to something that spirals like, say, Goblin Rabblemaster. Alright, there's a Fatal Push, but that guarantees 2 points of damage at our opponent's face. Not the end of the world, but not really where we want to be either. The Pyrogoyf is now a reasonable-sized creature, though. And it will only get bigger. I think I cast the Fable immediately. It's a little awkward if my opponent has Orcish Bowmasters right here as the thing that they are doing with their 2 mana. That was Force of Will worthy, and we got a Murktide Regent for our trouble. That's great. It's Petty Theft on Chrome Mox, which doesn't actually do much here, but my opponent doesn't know that. If they have a Daze as follow-up, like, it's perfectly fine and good. Oh, with Island Swamp here already, I think that just becomes Chrome Mox food. We'll put the Blood Moon under there. I think I play around Daze on Pyrogoyf. My opponent doesn't have that many resources left. I think just making sure this sticks matters a lot. So 4 damage to face, opponent's at 12. And we'll presumably see end of turn Brazen Borrower coming in, which we do. I don't think I need to be overly concerned about answering that if I am putting my own 4-power creature into play, like I win that race. I have to be concerned about a larger creature like Murktide Regent hitting play. Attempt to send in for my 4. Opponent goes to 7. I think for blue for Murktide Regent, I now Blood Moon. It also just helps with some fetch, Fatal Push stuff for Revolt specifically. Bowmasters, sure. I will go to 16. Blood Moon has resolved. This does give my opponent 2 chump blocks versus Pyrogoyf. That's definitely relevant. They're going to have a hard time removing this Pyrogoyf, though. I think I outclock my opponent from here. Ooh, they are going in for all 5. Sure. I am not looking for more Blood Moons at this stage. 3 is a bit much. I didn't even want the second one that much. Alright, opponent is at 3. At this point, Simian Spirit Guide is a real threat. That is a Daze. Sure. So now we're probably going to go into this pattern where my opponent attacks me for 4 and leaves 1 back to chump block. They might leave 2 back if they are afraid of dying to any single target removal spell, such as another Pyrogoyf. But like, those individual points of damage might end up mattering a lot here. Smash in for 4. Opponent takes the block with the actual factual Bowmaster itself. I can hold this for looting, or I can play another one so that a Brazen Borrower doesn't make the Blood Moon leave play. I think that's what I am going to do. I just want to keep Fatal Push from being online for as long as possible. I'm at 5. Top decks have not been kind here. Send it. There's another chump. Margins are real tight here. Opponent still has 4 cards, though. Like, I could die to Bowmasters here. I don't. There is a Brainstorm. So this does not get to be followed up with another blue card. Brazen Borrower doesn't block. The opponent needs something like a black creature that can block to be played out here. Ooh, they have showed me that they have green in their deck as well. That's important information. I mean, I fully bottomed out here. Just drawing multiple Blood Moons and lands in a row. Let's see who's dead. It's me. I die. That's pretty disappointing. It's just literally anything in about the last 4 draw steps, and we easily get over the line here. So, how do I want to approach this? I always want this Pyroblast. I'm going to assume that Hearse is fine to good against Murktide Regent. There might be more, such as Nethergoyf, that I hit. I don't think I want to go Leyline deep. I'm probably going down some number of lock pieces, Blood Moons, or Trinispheres. Trinispheres are fine on the play and pretty weak on the draw. Same is kind of true for Blood Moon, though. Like, if I jam a turn 1 Blood Moon, it is a real problem. Just really bad to use mana on a Trinisphere once my opponent has a threat in play. I'm going to cut 3 of either Trinisphere or Blood Moon. I think I'm going to cut 3 Blood Moon. This simply does not have enough mana to function. This is actively good. I'm keeping this one. We go Ancient Tomb, Chrome Mox, Imprint, Spirit Guide, and we play a card of our choosing. A conceptual problem here is that the Blood Moon is best if I play it on turn 1, but the Trinisphere wants to be used to protect the Blood Moon. So there's some awkwardness there. I'm also not sure whether or not I throw back Razorkin Needlehead or Bonecrusher Giant. If Blood Moon sticks, then I can cast Razorkin Needlehead off Ancient Tomb Chrome Mox, and if it doesn't stick, then I can't cast that off of those 2 cards. I think I'm keeping and pitching the Bonecrusher Giant. So Chrome Mox, Imprint, Spirit Guide. I think I'm going to Trinisphere first. But, you know, this makes the Blood Moon less effective. We eat Force of Negation. So by playing Trinisphere first, I do play around Consign to Memory, just deleting my Trinisphere for 1 mana. That's the worst case scenario. So either way, this happens because Force of Negation hits both of the things that I could have played. Alright. So I will lose some life here and play the Needlehead. Now my opponent gets a chance to fetch a basic land and play around me top decking a land for Blood Moon. No Fatal Push immediately. I guess that's good. So now I'm missing my land for my Blood Moon, unfortunately, and this Blood Moon is now probably pretty close to a dead card. It's not literally a dead card, but the Blood Moon on turn 4 is not very effective. My opponent will have a chance to get 1 or multiple basics before I do anything powerful here. Oh, and they naturally just drew another. That's rough. So we're going to stomp our opponent's face here, just kind of take our incidental burn damage. Opponent goes to 14. Curse is not what I am hoping to draw here. This Blood Moon is now, I think, fully a dead card. Sure. Yeah, Fatal Push. You have Orcish Bowmasters. That is not actually going to trade with me in combat. I have First Strike. Are you going to realize that I have First Strike? It sure seems like the answer to that question is no. That feels good. So this has First Strike during my own turn. Feels good. We'll cast Unlicensed Hearse here. And I am just going to go ahead and eat immediately. This works against Future Pyroglyph a bit, but I just want to keep Murktide Regent out of range of being relevant. The Razorkin Needlehead is doing some serious damage to my opponent's life total. Alright, there's the Fatal Push. So we got an entire Bowmaster and a Fatal Push for our Razorkin Needlehead. And it did some serious life total damage to my opponent as well. Oh, there is a second basic island. Sure. So let's eat some stuff here. I am, I think, still going to play this rather than just jam Bonecrusher Giant immediately. I'm going to play this specifically to stop Fatal Push. I want to just make Revolt harder. My opponent did show us green. I'm not sure what that green is for yet. It could be for Up the Beanstalk. That's not great for me. Actually, it's not that bad with this here. We're going to go ahead and play this as a land. It doesn't cost any life. I will play a Bonecrusher Giant. I am not immediately interested in an attack. Hydroblast targeting Bonecrusher Giant. That's worth 2 points of damage. I will go ahead and crew my Hearse so that I fog this attack. My opponent may be willing to trade for the Hearse. Yeah, they are. I think I have to accept that trade. I will go ahead and block. I will eat 2 more cards from my opponent's graveyard on the way out. And now we are in this top deck war, where my opponent's graveyard is not super relevant. That's fine. I will hold that for Fable of the Mirrorbreaker. Brainstorm's fine. So I'm very afraid of another creature that looks like this one. It's just another land. Hardcast Force of Will is live. And I think a good, a likely contender for what is actually in my opponent's hand. Let's go ahead and drop a Trinisphere. It's not a very potent card at this stage of the game. It's not that it does literal nothing, but it's pretty darn close to doing nothing. Okay, opponent is playing extra lands, you know, maybe in respect of Trinisphere. Okay, deck. All right. So at this point, our opponent has now drawn through the previously brainstormed cards. The things like Consigned to Memory, Force of Will, Daze are going to be the things that I'm thinking about that are likely to be in their hand. At this point, I will play out an extra land so that this is better at killing something like a Goyf. We might flood out to that stage. Well, I mean, here we are. 6-turn clock. We're in. Okay, no, opponent's just passing their turn back. It's a little bit of a sad game of Magic, but we'll do what we can. I think I do continue to play lands out in respect of a large Shatter Skull Smashing. I can do it for X equals 5 if I play this Ancient Tomb. Holy hell, just no plays over there. Alright, Shatter Skull Smashing. Send it. Opponent is at 8. I will, I guess, keep making land drops. At this stage of the game, it is getting a little harder to figure out what exactly is in my opponent's hand. Were they just fully unwilling to counter a Spirit Guide? Because, like, Spirit Guide will just fucking kill them if they don't touch it. 6. Opponent now has 6 cards in hand, and is casting a Ponder. I don't think I Pyroblast that. Alright, opponent did not shuffle. I can do this post-combat. Send it. Is it Bowmaster? Nope, it's not Bowmaster. Opponent is at 4. So this is 3 mana. Surely there is a counter spell. No. Alright. Fatal Push. Hydroblast. No. I think the margins on this game are currently tight enough that I just counter that. Like, I know it resolves because of my Trinisphere. So this puts my opponent to 3. So the big worry is like a Goyf backed by a counter spell, so I can't kill it by Shatter Skull Smashing. Murderous Cut. Toxic Deluge going to 1. Sure. Noble creature. Simian Spirit Guide is here to help. Would you like to hardcast a Force of Will? No. 5 cards remain in hand. Are there just 4 copies of Up the Beanstalk in your hand? Or some crazy shit like that? Fable is great. Send in. That is a Murderous Cut. Opponent choosing to exile cards rather than pay mana. Fable of the Mirrorbreaker. There's the hardcast Force of Will. Alright, so there is the Goyf. But it doesn't matter. Assuming this resolves, this is lethal. I guess it could be countered. I mean, let's go for lethal. Oh, wait, no, this one doesn't have Menace. Fuck, this is not lethal. Oh, why did I think that had Menace? Fuck, I fucked up. So I could just attack with it and then they can't gain life for the rest of the game. They're at 6, can never gain more. Or no, this is fine, right? Because I'm going to undo the damage that they do. No, this is fine. Then I'll just answer it next turn. I'll attack in. My opponent blocks. They take 3 damage. I could send that right here. I think I'm going to send at face. Ooh, that's rough. Now I probably need to try to clear this. This costs me both Shatter Skull Smashings, though. So this is 5 mana, Shatter Skull Smashing, attempt to finish this off. Daze. Brutal. So if I tap out, if I play Shatter Skull Smashing and then tap out for a large one of these, doesn't actually get me to where I need to go. Consigned to Memory here is brutal. Opponent finds a Murktide Regent. Yep. Alright. GG's.
Today's video is sponsored by Moxfield.com, and honestly, they're just the best at what they do. If you need to keep your deck lists online, this is the way to do it. They have all sorts of different viewing options. You can condense that text if you like things to be tight. You can make them visual grids. You can put them in stacks. You've got all sorts of different ways to kind of view and visualize your deck lists. And they also have some really cool functionality, like allowing you to see playtest hands and even fully playtest your decks. So check them out.
All right. I mean, this hand just jams a Blood Moon, and we hope it works. I think I imprint the Spirit Guide. Jam Blood Moon. All right, we're in play. Now we get to see how impactful that actually is. Of course. Oh, and it's unfair combo. That's very unfortunate. So this was a double whammy of opponent naturally had a basic, and they also have acceleration. So now we play Fable of the Mirrorbreaker and attempt to loot towards Trinisphere. And we see if this is enough. If my opponent is a show and tell deck, which is, you know, very likely based on what I'm seeing here. We just lose this matchup outright. It is absolutely a terrible matchup. I think I say, like, do I have any fucking outs versus a large creature that's put in? Not really. I think I don't even put anything in. Yeah, that just beats us. Just fully are dead to that. Yep. Cool. Yeah, so this is super unfortunate. We basically don't get better versus this deck in post-sideboard games. We get 1 Pyroblast, we get 2 Disruptor Flutes. Most of the rest of the stuff here is not really worth doing. I could play Fiery Confluence if I want to just go to Dome with something. I think I'm going to board out all of my Blood Moons. They're just not very effective here. I can fill with a Fiery Confluence, and then I will turn a Magus of the Moon into Fiery Confluence. This is a game where I just want to clock my opponent, but unfortunately, the build of this deck does not clock as hard as something that has like Broadside Bombardiers and Goblin Rabblemasters. So I think we lost this round when we got the pairings, unfortunately. I think that's just how the matchup is going to go. Okay, so Magus of the Moon is not a win condition in this matchup. So this is turn 1 Screaming Nemesis, attack for 3. Turn 2 followed up with a 4-power creature. That is, I guess, fine. That's not exciting. Again, though, I think this is just a matchup that we lose, so we just have to keep something that is aggressive, and 3 hasty power into a 4-power creature is not bad. I think a Force of Will instantly wins my opponent the game as well. I think just losing this creature here means that they have all the time in the world. There's a very big difference between just Screaming Nemesis getting in there immediately and Bonecrusher Giant coming in with Summoning Sickness on turn 2. And I think they have the Force of Will. Or they're getting tacos. Alright, hot damn, we're in play. Attack for 3. Basic Island again. Yeah, jamming Blood Moon. Not super effective here. Send in. Opponent goes to 14. Float 2 mana. Take 3 damage. Lose a land. Play a Bonecrusher Giant. And again, I think I am just trying to put power into play. Yeah, like you could make the argument that I should Magus of the Moon to play around Ancient Tomb, Show and Tell next turn specifically. But I think I would like to put my opponent on a 2-turn clock, just 7-14, or like 7-16, but whatever. And I think if I lose this Ancient Tomb, then I lose out on the ability to top deck something like a Trinisphere that could get in the way of an Omniscience line. I don't think I like doing Magus. Bulk? That's not a fetch land. Alright. So, send in. Opponent gets hit for 7, and I now have a pretty difficult choice. Do I play Magus of the Moon? And if so, what land do I use? I think I'm going to go with City of Traders and play the Magus of the Moon. This means that I am not casting Pyroglyph next turn. I don't think Magus of the Moon matters, though. Third land. God damn. Okay. Sure. So I will get to deal 3 to your face for that. Ooh, shit, that turned Pyroglyph into a lethal threat. I mean, I'm going to try. I think my opponent has Force of Will. That was the read I got on them at the beginning of the game. But if they don't, yeah, they do have Force of Will. So I'm not saving that to put in off of Show and Tell before someone asks. So if they had Show and Tell and the ability to win the game, they could have just done that last turn and won. There's a good chance that they are building towards like a sneak attack finish. There is thinking. 4th land. It's the One Ring instead. Obviously that's bad, but my opponent is doing it from 3 life. So it is unclear how many counters, if any, they can actually put on that. This is very awkward. If I play Spirit Guide, I can't top deck Pyroglyph and cast Pyroglyph. If I play Magus of the Moon, I can't cast Spirit Guide. So, like, there's active downsides to both. I think we're just casting a Spirit Guide. Are you drawing cards, or was that a fog against Screaming Nemesis? Like, once you draw 1 card, this is lethal. And Stomp is also lethal. I think I showed my opponent Bonecrusher Giant last game. I showed it to them this game. Yeah, no, they are unwilling to draw cards with the One Ring. Every point of life is precious. Alright, it's Show and Tell time. Do I put in Magus of the Moon. If I do, I lose access to 3-drops. That would mean Screaming Nemesis. I think I don't put this in. Ooh, buddy. That's scary. Bonecrusher Giant. What's the other rider on this? Damage can't be prevented this turn. Okay. Am I playing towards my opponent drawing a card with the One Ring? And then I Bonecrusher Giant them out of the game? I think that's what I'm playing towards. Very awkward. I think that's where we're at. Draw it, draw it, draw it, draw it, draw it. It's safe. You're about to gain 7 life. Do it, you won't. Fuck. Alright. Dead? Alright, my opponent is deep in the tank. I'm just gonna concede. They've got this one. GG's. Alright, we have a slightly slow hand. My opponent is mulliganing to 5, which a lot of times recently has just meant that we are paired against oops all spells. So hopefully that is not the case. I have 3 different reasonable turn 2 plays that all branch out in slightly different directions. Okay, not Blood Moon. We're not playing Blood Moon in the mirror. So I think I go ahead and just get my Fable down immediately. I'll have Bonecrusher Giant or smaller creatures that my opponent can play out. Lotus Petal. Another Shadow Skull. Oh, fuck, it's not the mirror, it's Ruby Storm. Oh, nope, it is a weird-ass Oops All Spells deck. Alright, well, cool. What's going on here? Why do they want to do this? Just literally more rituals so that you can play Rite of Flames. And it has a Goblin Charbelcher in game 1. Alright. They named Fable of the Mirrorbreaker. Where's their Dread Return? Dread Return. There's our Dread Return. So Dread Return Thassa's Oracle is live. And there it is. So I will concede to that. I could have conceded with this on the stack. With the previous Cabal Therapy on the stack. Alright, Leyline, Mindbreak Trap, Disruptor Flute, Unlicensed, Hearst, Pyroblast, probably not. So what are the worst things in my deck here? Razorkin Needlehead is not impressive if my opponent is not drawing extra cards. That's out. Hieroglyph is slow. That's out. Blood Moon effects aren't the best. I could play them. I like Magus just fine. It's on a body. I don't know that I like Blood Moon. I think I am going to cut a non-creature rather than a creature here. My creature count is like 16, which is a little low. Like I've cut 8 creatures here, or a bunch of non-creatures. Could be an argument to cut Blood Moon further. Yup. Leyline. Ancient Tomb. Trinisphere. So now I just need to draw something that has power and toughness to finish this game. Imagine we're just going to see tapped lands for a while. Yeah, this is fine. I think I go ahead and play this immediately, rather than do something like Disruptor Flute on Goblin Charbelcher. Second land. I think I just loot through both Blood Moons here. Okay. Are we done? Okay, we are done. That's fair. And then I think I'm going to make this swap. I could play 2 Fiery Confluence. That might have a better damage output on average than Razorkin Needlehead, while also occasionally nuking some artifact mana. Okay, I mean, yep. It starts with a Leyline of the Void and then plays a Trinisphere on turn 1. I don't have a follow-up for that immediately, but hopefully that's fine. Tapped land is fine. Opponent can play out whatever artifact mana that they have right now. Alright, well, I think this is the way it has to be. And I just hope to draw any red land, at which point I have a bunch of pressure. But, you know, my opponent can, in theory, from here, just go land drop, Goblin Charbelcher, activate the following turn. Alright, so they are just going to play a fair Undercity Informer. This does not do a ton as of right now. Well, there's a land, but it is not a red land, unfortunately. So this sort of situation is why I often say that a hand that has a lock piece and not a follow-up threat afterwards is not actually a keep. I think versus Oops All Spells, like, I don't think you can throw back Leyline into Trinisphere. But it is very possible that we lose this game if I just brick out on red lands for too long. Okay. Awkward, but okay. So I cast a Chrome Mox for 3 mana. I think I imprint the Magus of the Moon because it lines up the worst against these. And then I pass the turn, I take 4, I go to 10, and then I stabilize the board, versus this stuff at least. 4th land drop. Alright, so opponent just continues to have creatures. They don't die to Bonecrusher Giant. Alright, cool. I am at 10. I will play a Screaming Nemesis and pass. I'm certainly not the beatdown here. Good god, more? Oh, Fell the Profane. That is their 4th copy of that card this game. Alright. That is beyond disappointing. GG's. Alright. We have a capable hand. It does not do a thing on turn 1, unfortunately, but I don't think we necessarily want to just mulligan towards that every time. Okay, so we are probably going to lose. Our opponent is just on the play and gets to do their thing before I do. So I don't get to Bonecrusher Giant this on turn 1. And we'll just kind of see how bad this ends up being. I think this is just Mountain Pass, unfortunately. It does not feel like my deck is lining up well at all versus the current metagame. Urza Saga, I don't have a Blood Moon effect right now. And even if I did, there's bigger problems. So like Glaring Fleshraker and Mystic Forge are the primary problems here. Yeah, I think this game's over. That's great. I don't really have time to play it. I don't really have time to do anything other than just remove this. And that probably costs me 2 life here to do. I can't really afford to just lose the land. Yeah. They're just not having a turn 1 play and being on the draw here, I think just kind of damned me. So I reduce the power of Mystic Forge by getting rid of Glaring Fleshraker. I can answer an Urza Saga token with a Pyroglyph, maybe. It'll probably be a 3/4 when I play it. Creature enchantment land in graveyard. So Saga ticks up to 2. And that's not great. Our opponent is just going to go wild with Glaring Fleshraker. And then I just end up back in the same position where I can answer a Glaring Fleshraker, but then there's still like Urza Saga and Mystic Forge and potentially more stuff beyond that. This does not feel good. This is not fun. The One Ring beyond that. I think at this point the writing is on the wall. Like, I am not going to beat Mystic Forge, One Ring, Glaring Fleshraker, and Urza's Saga to power that up from here. Disruptor Flute is great. Fiery Confluence is playable. Fury is something that I will consider. I think I will be doing Blood Moon stuff. It has very real impact versus Urza's Saga. Trinisphere is not exciting, but is probably necessary. Razorkin Needlehead is fine if I have time to get it out. Pyroglyph is fine if I have time to get it out. I think we're going to do that. Do I Fury? I think I turn 2 Pyroglyphs into 2 Furies just to be better in the early game. Don't think I'm going to go for something like Mindbreak Trap. This is incredibly awkward. So I can turn 1 Trinisphere, but then I can't play a follow-up red card. So with this hand, I can turn 1 Fable of the Mirrorbreaker, turn 2 Trinisphere or Razorkin Needlehead. Does this win? I'm not sure that this wins. Let's mulligan. So this can turn 1 Trinisphere, turn 2 Bonecrusher Giant. Awkward. Keep one of these. Fire Confluence is probably going to be too hard to cast this game. All right. So we 3-ball. It's not a particularly exciting play against this deck, despite the fact that it is a combo deck that plays a whole bunch of things. Because the deck just has the ability to slow down their game and just like Urza Saga Ancient Tomb their way to victory. All right, so 1, 2, 3. I now get to play my follow-up threat. And then we just hope that we top deck a little bit more mana to continue to play the game. Workshop. Yeah, so like next turn bad things probably happen to me. I think I shock this in. That way I can Disruptor Flute, something like the One Ring when it's on the stack. But I want to have that flexibility to hit like the One Ring or Karn or whatever. Yes. I will name the One Ring. My opponent still gets their turn worth of protection. But in return for giving them that turn worth of protection, if they fluked down something like a Karn or a Mystic Forge, I could name that instead and stop those activated abilities. Oh, this is... Oh, it's almost very funny. So Bonecrusher Giant Stomp can prevent damage, but I don't actually have 3 mana to cast that. So opponent has a ton of mana now. Alright, they did have Mystic Forge too. I slow that down with Trinisphere, but I don't stop that. And now my opponent has like Urza's Workshop and Urza's Tower. And I think we are just fully getting overwhelmed here. Ozilek's Command. Yeah, that's not great. We are in kind of a no agency game where I just have to play cards when I have the opportunity to play cards. And I imagine it's just a matter of time before I right-click concede. 3 mana, second Workshop. Must be a Kozilek's Command or something modal that they're trying to figure out how they're going to use. Yep, so it's just nuke a creature and scry, leaving some mana to cast more stuff afterwards rather than maxing out on the scries. That seems reasonable to me. They like multiple of the cards there, so they can set that up in a way where they just Mystic Forge the cards off the top rather than draw them. And there's also green mana. Sowing Mycospawn, or do you have some green sideboard card that answers Trinisphere? Monolith. This is 6 mana for a kicked Sowing Mycospawn. Karn the Great Creator. At this point, my opponent can just like plus on Karn the Great Creator and beat me to death with the One Ring. Lattice? Can you do that now? We got 4 mana showing. I don't know why we made green. We're untapping a Monolith. Made green for no reason. Razorkin Needlehead is actually... Never mind. Trinisphere. Concede. We are getting our ass whooped. My deck is not competitive. Alright, I guess we're jamming Magus of the Moon on turn 1. I'm not really sure how I feel about the Blood Moon effects right now. They have not felt particularly strong today. More generally, I don't think this deck is lining up well versus the current metagame. The deck was negative win percentage wise prior to the ban. Alright, we Magust. Just play your basic land and put me out of my misery. God damn it. Oh, it's just another fucking combo deck that is going to go off through my... Yep, cool. Really cool. My opponent is just going to turn 2 Thassa's Oracle kill me through Magus of the Moon. Cool, cool, cool. Cool. I'll play another one of these. So my opponent notably has to have double basic island or island double Lotus Petal for this to happen. Yeah, just double basic island in their opener. Fuck me. I'm so upset right now. I am so incredibly upset right now. My cards aren't even good against this deck. Like, I can Disruptor Flute and Pyroblast. My Blood Moon effects are dead versus this deck that just plays a gajillion basic islands. So, like, these all need to come out. That means I'm probably filling with Fiery Confluence. How does Thought Lash read? Does Thought Lash prevent combat damage or any damage? Thought Lash is any damage, so Fiery Confluence is not great versus that either. I still think I'm going to play another one of those over, like, a Magus of the Moon. Man, this feels awful. Alright, Ancient Tomb, Chrome Mox, Imprint a land, Trinisphere, hope to top deck a threat. Is Trinisphere good enough versus this deck that it is worth keeping a hand that does that? Or do I need to just keep an aggressive hand? This has a lock piece with no follow-up. I don't think I keep this. This could turn 1 Razorkin Needlehead. That's not great. I think this is worse than an Ancient Tomb hand. We're going to 5. Like my opponent turn 3'd me through interaction. I don't think it's reasonable to keep something that looks like this. That's 1 basic mountain. We're going to 4. We can't be picky at this stage. 1, 2, 3, 4, or something like that. City's always going back. Chrome Mox is always going back. Pyrogoyf goes back. So what do I name with Disruptor Flute? Thought Lash is pretty good. I think I am going to just select that. Shutting off that activated ability is very good. I'm going to do this on my opponent's upkeep to play around Force of Negation if they are playing that. 2 words, Thought Lash. The problem with naming this one, though, is that this is not one of the things that leads to the fastest Goldfish. My opponent can just do something similar. do what they did last game, where they just end up paradigm shifting and Thassa's oracling. But this hedges against the thing that will always beat me because my clock is not fast enough. Send it. So I am operating on a 7-turn clock. That is simply just not gonna do. Second basic island. Ugh. Trinisphere. That's a thing. Opponent's at 14. I will drop the Trinisphere. And we get an impulse in response. Is Trinisphere resolving? Trinisphere resolves. So it's turn 3. I have a threat in play and 2 pieces of disruption, despite the fact that this was a 4-card hand. This is about the best I could have possibly hoped for. That's not the best for me. Now I can't Fiery Confluence this turn. So my opponent gets a full on-time walk for this. So they dodge 7 damage this turn. Opponent's on 11. And now we just see if I drown in cards. 5 mana now available with that island. Alright, looks like we're dead next turn. So, the real question is my opponent dead instead? I think the answer is yes. I think it's 3 plus 6 plus 2. Trinisphere means they can't currently counter my stuff unless there's something wild like a Spirit Guide over there. Alright, send in for 3. Opponent is at 6, which conveniently, how much damage Fiery Confluence does? Are you dead? 3 mana. That's what I thought. Alright, we won a mold of 4. Yep. I am going to hit the submit button. Again, my cards just do not line up well versus this deck. I can keep a highly aggressive hand here. That probably plays some creatures and then drops a Disruptor Flute on Thassa's Oracle. That is my guess for how this game goes. I think Fiery Confluence ends up going under Chrome Mox. The second hard red mana is just not guaranteed. Cavern of Souls. Not a basic island. Chrome Mox. Imprint Fiery Confluence. I could attack for 3. Attack for 3. Attack for 7. 13 damage as of third attack step. Or I can attack for 0. Attack for 7. Attack for 14. That's better. We'll just play this guy. Alright, we're in play. We've got Screaming Nemesis and Disruptor Flute both next turn if I want to. Which I potentially do. He's Lorien Revealed is just another way through Blood Moon. Good God. What a terrible matchup. Alright, at least my opponent is spending some time actually cantripping this game. Rather than just outright killing me. Razorkin Needlehead. I think I am always playing Disruptor Flute this turn, so I guess I'll play around a hypothetical Daze. Sack that land, play Screaming Nemesis. Do you have Force of Will? You do have Force of Will. Pitching Force of Negation at that. Sure. I'm going to send in for 4. I'm going to try to hold Disruptor Flute. If the One Ring, for example, goes on the stack, I might need to cast Disruptor Flute this turn on that. Otherwise, Razorkin Needlehead does a lot at checking the One Ring. So let's just go ahead and cast this here. Hardcast Force of Negation could answer this now that it couldn't a second ago. Opponent impulses in response. Notably, the impulse card is not revealed. I think I am going to just go with the actual win condition here. Okay, that's not what I'm looking for as a draw. I think I need one more threat to clock hard enough to easily have a win. Good opponent thinks of this. They don't have many cards left in hand, so this is probably resolving. So this is 6 damage showing, plus 1 damage per draw step and or cantrip. The opponent's at 10. Yeah, this was a fear. This is why I preemptively Disruptor Fluted Thought Lash in the previous game when I was on more resources. Hopefully I just out damage my opponent here in a meaningful way. 5 mana Thassa's Oracle is, I guess, possible now that Thought Lash has been played out. I'll always yield to that. I deal 0 damage. And then I will drop a Pyroglyph so that I am accelerating out more damage for the future. But again, this just gets stopped by Thought Lash. So I send 4 damage to face, but that's just going to result in 4 cards going to exile. I'll always yield to that. So now for this card's cumulative upkeep, my opponent exiles 1 more card. My opponent can stop this damage again with Thought Lash. And this is just going to be the 5-mana Thassa's Oracle that just plays through Disruptor Flute because my opponent had the Thought Lash rather than the Paradigm Shift. Cool. That is an 0-5 league where pretty much every round felt bad. Alright, that was an unmitigated disaster. I do not think that this deck or anything like it is good in the current metagame based on my experiences in that league. So I guess let's start with this build itself. As far as this build goes, I felt like my Blood Moons and Magus of the Moons were fully just ignored throughout the league, either because my opponents had basics or because they had artifact mana that just allowed them to play the game completely through it. These felt very, very close to dead, and they were not providing free wins. More generally, the creature's suite felt slow for the metagame. Like, if everyone is trying to go fast with combos still, like, I do not want to be accruing value with this card. I do not want to take a turn off to stomp a creature. I want things that snowball quickly and just win me the game. Like, Goblin Rabblemaster just clocks harder than the stuff that is in this deck. Broadside Bombardiers, flinging stuff, clocks harder than most of the things in this deck. I don't think this deck specifically in its current iteration is keeping up with the speed of the current metagame. Losing Vexing Bauble, I think, is a major blow to this deck. More generally, I don't even know that I want to be playing a deck that looks like this right now. Like, again, the Blood Moon stuff is not strong. Chalice of the Void was not missed in this league. Like, the decks that my opponent were playing are not hindered by Chalice of the Void on one specific number in many cases. So I think if my hate is serving as speed bumps rather than things that are realistically going to win me the game, I probably just shouldn't be playing this deck. We're still very early in the metagame, so like it's possible that this swings back around, but conceptually I don't think this deck is good against the tempo decks right now. And I think our numbers from EW were suggesting that that's also true. Even with Psychic Frog gone, like, Stomp is not going to kill a DRC. Stomp is not going to kill another Goyf. Stomp is not going to kill a Barrogoyf. Barrogoyf doesn't kill Barrogoyf either. I think this is going to end up being just awkwardly a step behind a lot of the metagame as of right now. So while there's some cool deck building going on here, it is not effective as of right now. And I think I'm gonna leave it with that. That was a beating to morale. Maybe don't buy cards for this deck right now, but if you need anything else to adjust to the current metagame, check out my sponsor, TOAMagic.com. Promo code ThrabenU will save you a bit on your order. Alright, Anubis buddy, we tried, but we got our asses kicked today. We'll try again with something else tomorrow. See ya.